Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terry Wager, Generator Coaching, on behalf of Boomerang Give to Get. And with me is Bruce and Crookshank, right? Can you say
Yep.
Crookshank?
Appreciate
We are talking about what it takes to build a business and how to go about doing that from solopreneur into creating a team and then creating a business around that team. And so I think that this is going to be much more conversational between me and Bruce, but we want to really have this conversation because there's a lot of people that are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs that just don't know how to start. And so one of the first things that I talk about with my clients is you have to have an idea, whether it's a product or a service that sells. And how that works is in a first stage of business is the idea phase. Hey, I got this idea. I want to go into business for myself. And so when we talk about that, we're talking about first stage business. It's the idea phase. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, Terry. Once you find out what's the market, do you have a market potential for your idea?
Right. And so when we were, well, probably about 3 years ago, we were thinking we want to start a business. And so we actually decided we wanted to do an Airbnb because, well, it was all the rage in a group that we were involved in. And so what we did is exactly what Bruce is talking about right now. We looked around and identified places where we could get an Airbnb. And that's basically what we did is we rented a house and then re-rented it. But before we actually did that, we checked out Airbnb to see what was around, to see if other people were doing it. And then we looked for hotels to see if people are actually going to that area. And so we first looked for the market desire. And so is the market looking for something like that? Is the community wanting something like that? And we found that there was a couple of hotels around and there was a number of Airbnbs around. And so then we decided we're going to rent a house and then we're going to set it up, put it on Airbnb and rent it. And we started making money right away because we actually did our research around that idea and then put that product together or service product. It was kind of a product and a service altogether because we were serving the people with the product of a place to stay. And so that's the idea of really kind of understanding that market research as Bruce was talking about. The next thing that we talk about is a proof of concept idea. And the idea with a proof of concept is, as Bruce was talking about, we have to have the ability to continue to do it. And so if you go, you know what, I want to sell, I don't know, ice. Well, if nobody buys ice, then that's a bad proof of concept. And so we sit there and sit there. We talk about having 4 or 5 sales to be able to be proof of concept. And so if you're a coach, if you have 4 or 5 clients that buy from you, I like to have within a month or 2 or 3 months, want to have it so kind of close together. Otherwise, you're not really doing it. It's a hobby. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of people out there with businesses that are more hobbies, and that's great. It's wonderful. But if you're wanting to build a business, you have to have a number of sales. We say 5 sales, 4 sales, somewhere around there, and you're starting to prove that this is a concept people are buying into. You don't want to be doing any real marketing. You don't want to be doing any kind of spending money to get clients or anything at this point because you haven't actually earned enough to do that. And so when we're working with our clients, I don't work with a whole lot of first stage businesses anymore. But when I did, it was really, do you have clients? No? Okay, let's get you a client. Let's get you another client. Let's get you another client. And then, okay, now I can see that you're getting clients. You have some ability to sell and you have some ability to talk to people, and then you can fulfill people are buying. And so that's the idea of that first stage of business is really, is it a concept that people want? Is there a market need? Are you able to sell it? Because let's face it, Bruce, how many people have you known that have a really good idea, but they can't talk about it. They can't talk to people,
Oh, absolutely.
sell.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what is your experience with helping people start businesses in the very beginning?
Well, one, I absolutely agree with you. Even as the business owner, regardless of where your ability lies or doesn't lie with sell, you still have to be able to sell. As a business owner, you still have to be able to sell until you want to start to build a sales team. Um, the biggest thing that I like to talk about, Terry, when I'm first talking with quote unquote, I'll say a business owner, is to ask them one question, and that is, do you want to build a practice or do you want to build a business? Because a lot of business owners don't have any idea of what the difference is between a practice and a business.
Yes.
And so, once I ask them that question and they go, what's the difference? It really is walking them through the difference so that they understand it to then say, because either one's okay.
Yeah.
You want to go build a great practice and build a really good practice for 15, 20 years, have it pay for your family, have it pay for your children's education, support your lifestyle, support your family. Great. At the end of it, understand you're probably not going to be able to sell that for a lot because essentially the practice is built around yourself. And that's fine. So then, you basically sell your client list and you move on to something else. Or do you want to build a business? Because if you want to build a business, then that's building, to your point, a business that you literally plan yourself out of. So the business will run without yourself. Now you've got a saleable asset from that point of view, and you can sell the business. You can hire somebody to run the business. You can run the business 2 days a week, hire somebody else for the other 3, go start another business. You can do a whole bunch of different things, but you can't do both because I see a lot of business owners in the beginning, one foot in the business boat, one foot in the practice boat, and they wonder why they're not going anywhere.
Right. And I'll just specify that the difference for some of you who are newer to business and the business models is a practice model is basically you are the person that's delivering the services. You are doing all of sales. It's basically a one man, maybe a 2 or 3 man show, but you might have somebody doing phones, but it's all dependent on you. And I was a solo practitioner when I was a psychologist. I was a solo practitioner. And so I had my own private practice. And so if I wasn't there, it wasn't happening. I had somebody doing my books. I had somebody doing my billing, but they didn't have a job if I wasn't doing what I was doing. Their jobs depended on me solely. And it was it was psychological. I actually designed it. I called it Psychological Services Center, and I designed it so that I could build it and then move myself out of it and bring people in. But I just realized that I didn't want to do mental health, and so I let that go. And then when we were starting into coaching and business consulting, I had that same frame of mind. It's like I want to be able to build this in order to move myself out of it or be the face of it, but have other people working for me and with me. And so we came up with Generator, and that kind of moves to my second point when we're talking about building businesses is the idea that you want to really start to get an idea of the personality and the idea of why this business exists, because there's a lot of people out there doing probably something similar to what you're doing. And so we talk about second stage of business, and this is where I start to really hone in on this with people, second stage of business. And we talk about second stage of business is 4 months with continuous $5,000 or more profit. And so we look at that as a benchmark because now you're really kind of a going concern. You showed that you can make the money. You showed that you have the power to build from that concept to actual revenue that's paying bills. And then the next step is to actually move into growing a team. Now, I won't say that $5,000 is enough to grow the team right there, but you want to start thinking about how are we going to grow this out?
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
Maybe you bring one person on, maybe you have contract people, whatnot like that. And so the biggest piece for me is start to get really focused on what your vision is, what your mission is, what the purpose of the company is, because of course it's to make money, but there's got to be a bigger purpose, because if there's no money and that's the only reason, that it's not going to be attractive, because we have to have some kind of passion. We have to have some kind of belief in some movement. And so what's the vision for what you want to do? Why do you want to do what you do? Where do you want to bring it? Who do you want to be serving? And all of these questions go into really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So when you're having a hard month or you're having a hard week, you can continue to do it. Because if you don't have that and you're only focused on money and it's not coming in, you're already done. Does that make sense, Bruce?
Absolutely. If you don't have that, you're not getting out of bed every morning to keep doing it when times get tough.
And you know, the funny thing is I have seen that so many times with early business owners, is they didn't really look at and dig into a vision of why they want to do it. Why the heck would you decide to build the business you're building?
Yep.
And if you don't know why, then it's hard to encourage other people to jump on board with you. Hey, hit that button. Why? I don't know, because it's fun to hit the button. What's it doing? I don't know. And so when we start thinking about why we're doing what we're doing, what's the outcome we're looking for? What's that idea that's generating inside you? And that's one of the reasons that we talk about generator in my business, is because we talk about, we want to, and this is our vision, help. Our vision is really a big idea. We want to help people understand that financial freedom is a skill and that anyone can have it as long as they practice learning how to sell, learning how to market, learning how to grow their business. And so that's kind of our vision for the people that we want to help. We want to show them how to grow a business quickly. Now, the mission is to help, and I came up with this with a buddy of mine. We want to help 100 people become millionaires in the next 5 years. And so that's our mission. And so we are doing whatever we can to help businesses prosper very quickly. And the purpose is to help people have the life that they choose, have the life that they desire. And so when we were thinking about this, we were like, what is it? What is this all about? What is this all about? You know, and Christine and I went back and forth. We took many a walk talking about why are we doing what we're doing? And what do we want to really convey to people? Not a marketing message, but when we really stop doing the marketing thing, but really start talking about what we want. And it was about this idea of generating wealth, about generating the life, generating. And for me, I came from this idea of we create our life the way that we see it in our head. And so if we're dominated by our emotions, and I've talked about that in other recordings and other trainings, or we're trying to control everything, it doesn't work, because we create wherever we are. If we're feeling dominated, we create a mess. If we're dominating, we create a different mess, but it's
a different kind of mess.
But everything comes from us and our interaction with the world. And so we were talking, and it's kind of like you generate what it's all generated from inside. And so we're like, that's a great name. And we looked it up and checked to see if anybody had taken it or whatever. And nope, it's free. And that's amazing, because everybody talks about generating leads and generating sales. And so we're like, cool. Everybody already talks about it and nobody's taken it. We're generator. And then we started moving into, how do we rally around that? How do we actually get people on board with that idea? And it's like, really, what we're talking about is generating action generating the action in your business to start building it the way you want so you can build your life. We talk about generating relationships to build your business. And so everything in our conversations was all about generating an action and building. And so that's kind of what we think about. And those are core values for us, is really building something bigger and generating the attraction, generating the movement, generating everything so that people can have what they desire. If you want a life, if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to generate it. It's just a fact. Nobody's going to do it for you. You were going to say?
Yeah, you've got to put the action in. You've got to put the energy in. The opportunity might be there in front of you. It's not going to get put in your hand. You've got to go create it.
Exactly. And so we use that as an idea. Okay, so this is clear. It's cohesive. It makes sense. If you talk to Christine about it, she'll be talking about the same thing. If you talk to me about it, I'll be talking about the same thing. And anytime I talk about Generator and what we're standing for, whether it's an entrepreneur or it's $1 million company, we are helping you to generate the business you desire. And so we can always look at, do you have a business you desire? Is it the way you want it to be? When you thought of your business, is there anything missing? Is there anything you do differently? Is it big enough? Is it earning enough? Is your team the way you want it to be? And so if those answers are yes, then you're generating the business that you desire. But if you're not getting the results you desire, you're generating something other than what you were looking for. So let's see how we can help you. See what's not working with what you're generating. How is the vision off? How is the mission off? Or how are the behaviors off that go with the vision and mission? And when we start looking at that, we can really start to see what direction we need to go. Whether it's a marketing plan that's not working, whether it's you don't have the sales happening right. Maybe somebody doesn't know how to move people in the sales. They don't have the influence that it takes to help people make a decision. Because a long time ago, when I was learning how to do sales, somebody told me sales is the transference of inspiration that makes people make a decision. And I absolutely love that, because so often people think that sales is convincing to try to get somebody to buy something. But if you transfer the inspiration to help somebody make a decision, then it's all generated inside of them, and now we're the guide. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I like most with what I do is I'm only a guide. And so I guide people along with what they're looking for, and I help them to create this clarity. And so every business starts with getting really clear. I should say, at any good, strong business, it's all about the clarity. When we're not clear, we don't grow, because people can't buy into something that's not clear. One of the things that I ask people when they start having this conversation with me is, okay, how many times have you gone to your cupboard and you pull out a glass to fill with water or something, and it's got like dingy, it's not clear? You're going to drink out of that? You're probably going to put it in a dishwasher or wash it before you drink out of it. You're going to get it clear so you can see through it. Water spots kind of gross people out because it's not clear. It looks dirty. And if your business looks dirty, people aren't going to buy in. Unless it's a greasy spoon. People that seem like those. There's always an exception to the rule. The big thing is when we're looking at really stepping up a business and moving that business into a going concern, a business that's making money, if there's no clarity, it's hard to say who you're going to go and sell to. It's hard to say how you're going to find your customers, what your target market is, any of that information. And so we really want to start with making sure that if you're alone, you know exactly what you're doing, exactly who you're doing it for. The problem you solve is what we talk about. What problem do you solve? Who has your problem? How have they tried to solve it before that hasn't worked? And then what is the solution you provide? How is this showing up? How is the problem they have showing up so that you can speak to it and let them know about your solution? And when we start being able to have that understanding, now we can start doing marketing messages and we can start talking about to the masses what we're doing to attract people. But if you don't have your vision, if you don't have your mission, if you don't know why you're doing it, if you don't know what behaviors you're supposed to be using in your business, if you don't know how you're supposed to behave in the business, you're not going to be attracting people. And so, really, in order to grow that business, it's got to be very, very clear, very intentional around the problem you solve, who's got your problem, what your solution is. When you have those, you can start moving people towards the solution. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Terry.
Anything to add?
I always like to say to a business owner, what's the problem that your customer has that they don't want? And what's the solution that they want that they don't have? How can you identify that to them and then provide that to them? Because if you can answer both sides of that question, if you can answer the problem that your customers have that they don't want and provide them a solution that they don't have that they want, they will buy.
Exactly. And one of the
You got to look at both sides of it though, because if you only have one side and not the other, it doesn't do any good.
It does not do any good. And we have an exercise we call the river, and basically we're the boat that crosses the river. And so one side of the river is the problem they have, how it shows up, what it looks like, how is it affecting them in their life? Why do they have that problem? Why do they think they have that problem? It's really why do they think they have that problem, not what
Amen.
yep. And how it's affecting them. And then, okay, other side of the river, what would life be like without it? If that problem was solved, what would it feel like? What would it be? What would be solved? What would have to be done different in order to solve it? And we walk them through this exercise, and it's amazing how much clarity just that exercise brings people, because they start to go, oh my God. A lot of them, oh my God, I've been trying to get everybody, but only like a fraction of the community even has this problem. I didn't even think about it. And so when you start to really identify what that problem is you solve and go down the river, so to speak,
Yeah.
start helping them to cross the river in your mind before you even talk to somebody. But you understand how you cross the river, how you help people cross the river. Now you become very helpful to people that have that problem. And they actually start putting their hands up. The more clear, they just show up. And it's like, oh, that's the problem I solved. I was just doing that with Terry. I just figured it out. Now I understand the problem I solved. It's funny because there's a number of, I work with a lot of real estate investors, and they start out as wholesalers. And these wholesalers, they think they're wholesaling because they want to be real estate investors, but they don't have the money to buy in. And so they start out thinking that wholesaling is the way to go. And wholesaling is a strategy or a tactic. It's a tactic. It's not a strategy. It's kind of
strategy.
And the idea is, if I get something under contract and I don't want it, I can give it to somebody else and let them buy it, and I make a little bit of money off of it. It's not, there's some people who have made it a big business and they are monsters and they're very good at it. But for the most part, it's a tactic. I would say it's a tactic in a strategy of building a portfolio. And so what I am doing as an investor is attempting to get as many properties under contract as I can, and then finding the money and then paying for them. And so that's kind of what I see in the investor category of a business. And I'm working probably with about 25 different investors doing this very thing. And the funny thing is they all think that they have to wholesale because they don't have any money. And so they've created this idea in their mind that this is what they're doing. And then when they start calling, they just keep going, hey, do you want to sell your house? Well, nobody wants to sell their house. Even people that are underwater don't want to sell their house. It's their house. They aren't going towards the problem that they're solving. They're asking if somebody will sell them a house. Like, no, I'm not selling you my house. Why would I do that? And so we work really hard with the investors to be able to understand the problem that they're solving so that they can narrow in and key in on those people who would be more likely to sell a house. And the funny thing is there's a big group of people out there willing to sell their house to the person who solves their problem that they have.
Yeah.
And so when you understand the problem you have, or the problem you solve, I mean, the problem that your people have, now you can speak directly to that market, and then people go, oh yeah, I do have that problem. I want to sell my house now. And so you start to get traction quite a bit. And it's funny how you think, and maybe this is just me, but when I first heard of investing and wholesaling and that whole idea of calling people and selling their house, I was like, why would anybody want to do that? But when I started putting it through the lens of the river exercise, oh, people are in foreclosure. They don't want to sell their house. But the problem is they're going to lose their house, and they're going to lose their money, and they're going to lose their credit, and they're going to lose all kinds of stuff. Well, I'm not buying your house. I'm solving those problems. I can help you come back from the edge of complete bankruptcy. Oh, well, I want to do that. How do we do that? Well, one of the vehicles we use is offloading your house. We can give you cash for that, and then we can pay off some of your debt, and then you can get square, and we can even help you relocate. Oh, well, that doesn't sound so bad now. I still don't want to sell my house, but I kind of understand it a bit better. Now you can have a conversation that's intelligent around really helping them to understand why this is a better move and help them to go down the decision tree in order to be able to make that decision. And that's
to your point, and to your point there, Terry, too, you're giving them a mental imagery of how they can cross the river.
exactly.
Yes, I don't want to sell my house, but no, I don't know how to cross the river.
Exactly.
By having that conversation, now they can say, okay, yes, I understand that I've got to sell my house, but now I also see that I'm getting across the river.
Right. And they also, through that conversation, when we frame it that way, a real big piece of it is that they don't want to sell their house, but it's on fire and it's burning all their money.
Yep.
And it's creating a lot of stress because, well, it's hot in that house on fire. And so they start to realize how much pain it is to stay in that house. And so just talking about it more with them, because we're talking about more of the problem that you solve rather than, do you want to sell your house? It's just a different approach, but it really is coming from your own clarity with the problem you solve. It works for if you're a physical therapist. Well, all kinds of people need physical therapists, but if you got 200 people that are physical therapists saying, I do physical therapy, but somebody else talking about their vision and talking about their mission to help people feel better and be able to have the flexibility, that's going to be a different conversation rather than I do physical therapy. Mm-hmm. And so being able to really get clear on what you do and why you do it is really where that building the business comes from. And then when we start moving into, okay, I got a business, now you have to think about who is going to be in your business. You got to think about who you're attracting as far as clients, of course, because you won't be able to hire anybody. But after clients, who's going to work with me? What are my employees going to be like? What is the culture going to be like? And the funny thing is the culture comes from your vision and mission and purpose and values, behavioral values. And so who am I looking for? What kind of people do I want to work here? Most likely like us, but how do you know if they're like you? And so we talk about 3 aspects of what we're looking for in T people. We're looking for people who are driven, a generator. When I work with people, or I have, when I do joint ventures, because I don't hire people right now, but I do a lot of joint ventures, I look for people who are driven, really, really want to grow in some way. They want to move fast. I look for people who are humble, who can see their limitations and who can see their abilities and be able to celebrate both and have a desire to develop in the areas that they need development at the same time as really capitalize on their strengths. And then people who are really good with people. And a guy named Patrick Lencioni talks about hungry, humble, and smart. And so I use those same ideas. But when I think about hungry, I think about driven, and really not just hungry, because you can be hungry and not eat. But if you're driven, you're going, you're moving forward. And the smart that he's talking about is really being able to work with people well. And what I talk about is attuned, really attuned to the other people in your world. What kind of emotions are they experiencing? What kind of drive do they have? What kind of aspirations do they have? What kind of inspirations do they have? Where do they want to go? What makes them excited about life? Knowing that about the people in front of you and knowing quickly, that's a good person to have on your team. People that are kind of unaware of that stuff tend to bulldoze people, or they tend to be doormats if they don't have those qualities. Or they tend to not pay attention to other people. And so when those 3 qualities come together, it's an ideal team player, is what Lencioni talks about. And for me, I only bring into my team people that are hungry, humble, and smart. I will not work with somebody who doesn't have that. If they got 2, okay. If I can see that they have the ability to develop in that other area, for sure, because everybody has that development. But when I'm building my team, when I'm looking at really that cohesive team, I want those 3 characteristics in that person, because when you have that, you can build your team fast. And I don't know if you've experienced it in Canada, but man, people are talking about it's hard to find anybody to hire these days, and they just can't find good people. Have you guys been experiencing that?
I find that's an age-old problem, Terry, because again, a lot of people don't know what they're looking for. Again, even just listening to you in terms of hungry, humble, and smart, you've got a vision of what that individual looks like. You've got an idea of what that individual looks like. You've got an awareness of what that individual looks like. You can go find that individual in the marketplace. Working with business owners, like to use the analogy where they say the exact same thing that you're hearing from customers. I just can't find the good people. And I go, okay, I get it. Have you ever taken a car for a test drive? Well, sure, I've taken a car for a test drive. Okay, well, how many more times did you see that car on the road after the test drive than before the test drive? Oh, I see it a whole lot more times. Well, how many more times? Twice as many, 3 times as many? Oh, I see it like 3 or 4 times. Why do you see that car? You haven't even bought the car yet. You're only thinking about buying the car, but you see the car 3 or 4 more times. How come? Well, because I'm mentally aware of it. Okay. What's the ideal candidate for your business look like? Are you mentally aware of that? Because if you're mentally aware of it, you'll find them. And you don't have to go and do a massive recruiting campaign on Indeed or anything else like that, which just gives you a whole bunch of garbage. Because now you've got a very clear, to your point, Terry, vision and awareness of what you're looking for. you'll find them in your everyday conversation. Even
Exactly.
just as you're going from one client to another, even as you're going from one Starbucks to another, even as you're going in from one business to another, and all of a sudden you'll bump into these people. You might even be in an elevator going up, to the 24th floor, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? I'd like to have a conversation with you. Where do you go?
Yeah, Christine worked for Starbucks for a number of years, 18 years, and we often, in our travels and in our interactions around the city that we lived, that she was working at Starbucks in, we had these cards that have a cup of
Yep.
coffee on us, and they were recruitment cards. And so we looked for people who matched up to what Christine was looking for in employees. And so we just hand them a card. Hey, come see us at the Starbucks. And I mean,
Absolutely.
come see her. But we do the same thing with Generator. When we're talking to people and we're interacting with different people at either online events or offline events and in-person events, and when we run into people who fit what we're looking for, fit our culture, hey, let's have coffee. Let's do a virtual coffee and talk about how
Absolutely.
maybe we can work together. But it's always in this idea of, for me, hungry, humble, smart.
Let's put it into a different story. Let's assume, Terry, right now you got a full complement of people. Business is doing great. You're absolutely to the max, and you come across an individual who not only is hungry, humble, and smart, but would immediately come in and add value to your business, even though you're a full complement right now. Would you find a place for that person in your business?
100%.
Absolutely. So where I'm going with that is recruiting is 24/7
Yes.
with a rifle. It's not in desperation with a shotgun.
100%. And that's kind of where I'm going at with this. So I like what you're saying is, when I was a psychologist in my psychology practice, I had a lot of people come in that were single or going through divorce, or they want to get back into finding another person, finding a relationship. For some reason, that's important to people. I don't know what. They really, they really wanted a relationship, and so they started getting on dating apps like Tinder and Plenty of Fish. And I always talk about, or eHarmony, and I always talk about the idea of plenty of fish in a barrel. And so you're looking for people in these dating sites, and you're sitting there swiping left and right based on what you're looking at and what you're reading. But that's just a snapshot of the person, and you don't get a real flavor for what you want.
Nope.
You don't do some kind of work before you start getting into contact with people. And so what I had them do is I had them really identify what they're looking for in a person, what they're looking for that they want, and what they're looking for that's a definite no, and get real clear on the ideals of what they're looking for. Funny enough, when you start really looking, almost everybody starts to put different things that they're looking for in the idea of humility, in the idea of some kind of drive for life, and some kind of attunement with other people. It falls into these three categories no matter what. And then what is the no's? Well, we don't want depressed people, and we don't want anxious people, and we don't want people that are jerks, and we don't want people that do these annoying things or whatever. And so it's very, very similar for everybody when they start doing these lists. But every time, and this is a bold statement, but every time I've had somebody walk through this process of identifying what they're looking for in a partner, very quickly after that, they meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to your priming example of when you look at it and you see it, you start seeing it everywhere.
Absolutely.
If you don't have that idea of what you're looking for, everything does until it doesn't for you. Everything fits until the second or third time, because you weren't looking at the list that you are definite no's, and you weren't looking at the list of what you're looking for. And it works like that with employees. And I guarantee, from my experience, as well as all of the different people that I've worked with that are having hiring problems, whether it was, way before COVID or continuing on through COVID, is you just can't find people. Well, no, it's because you don't know what you're looking for. Exactly what you said. You don't know what
If you don't know what you're looking for, everybody's a potential employee. No one's a good employee.
Yes.
And so many business owners are tired of hiring on potential. Okay. And to your point, I always like to say, how do you turn potential into performance? Well, one, it's not your responsibility as the business owner, it's the employee's responsibility. And to your point again, if the employee is hungry, humble, and smart, they will go do that on their own.
Well, and
I then just have to direct them as a business owner.
that is very true. And when I start working with people around management of their people, once they get them in, the reality is you can have somebody that's hungry, humble, and smart, but if they don't feel like they're relevant and they're just hitting a button, they're going to be hungry somewhere else. If
Exactly.
there's measurement, they're not going to have any direction.
Exactly.
And if you don't know who they are, or you stopped talking to them at the hire, okay, you're hired, now go do my work, they're not going to work for you. You
Nope.
got to have that idea of relevance. You got to have the idea of connection, and you got to have the idea of measurement for people to actually perform the way you want them to. You can't just, I have a friend who actually, he might see this someday, but I have a friend who has a little landscaping business, and he burns through people. And the reason is because he hires them, and then he said, go mow the lawn.
Hey, go dig a ditch.
Go dig a ditch. Go do this. While I do whatever, instead of having that relationship.
Sorry.
And instead of creating some kind of relevance to why you're doing what you're doing, where do you want to go? What do you want to do with this? How can you be a part of my company in a bigger way? And there's no measurement. And so it's just the only thing that they have is, well, I get $100 a day. Well, $100 a day.
Well, you look at the number one competency of all highly successful people. It's self-management. Okay. And I'm not talking about people that are running their own business. I'm talking about employees within a business. And to your point, they're self-managed already. And then when you overlay the vision, you overlay the mission, now they've got purpose to come in every day and go do what they do. And Terry, I've got to say too, I love your mission, because there's so many companies out there that have a mission, but nobody knows when they're going to win, because the mission is so broad, so wide, so everything. And when you're saying, we're going to get 100 business owners to millionaires, well, now they know when they win that game. And so now they know there's a start point and an end point. And at any given time, how many millionaires have we created? 56. Great. We got 44 to go. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And they've got context to content.
Exactly.
A lot of times business owners give, I'll say, their employees content, but they don't put it in any kind of context. There's something the employees don't know what to do with it.
I was actually thinking about that statement earlier. I was like, what is it? How does it go? Content is king, but context is the kingdom.
Absolutely.
And so your content doesn't live anywhere except in the context of how you're presenting it.
Exactly.
So we have to be very, very clear. And it all boils down to clarity. I mean, think about if you're driving down the road and you don't know where you're going, how soon are you going to get there? Where? I don't know.
That's where I always like to say, what's the one bad thing about doing nothing? You're never quite sure when you're finished.
Exactly. It's so funny, but when you really start to think about what you're doing and you get more intentional and you start really identifying what's happening, everybody will get on board that agrees with your mission and your values and your vision if you're clear about it. But if there's no clarity, it's very hard to follow. I've got a couple of friends. Man, I got a couple of friends who are just brilliant, but I have no idea what they're talking about half the time. They lose me in the statements. And so They start with a point A. They even can give it point B, and then somewhere in the conversation, it tangential and circular, and it's just unclear what they're talking about.
Well, it's the same analogy, Terry. If you got, to your point about driving the car, if you're driving the car down the highway at 60 miles an hour and you're looking 6 feet off your bumper, by the time you see the wall in front of you, it's too late. You can't do anything. And a lot of business owners set their employees up to be going 60 miles an hour, but they only show them the next 6 feet in front of them instead of showing them the next 6 years in front of them.
Yeah.
So that they can see where they're moving towards and how they're going. Because where I'm performing today, let's assume I'm performing here, and I want to get here, that becomes a very powerful motivator if I know that's where the next step is, and I can see that I can get there, but it's going to be a stretch. Because now that becomes very motivator. If I can't see where I'm going, it becomes a demotivator because I don't know where I'm going.
Exactly.
If the stretch is so big, I don't believe I can get there, it's a demotivator because I'm not even going to try because I don't believe I can get there.
I was just talking about that with somebody else. I don't even remember who or where, but they were talking about, oh, I know where it was. It was my coach, actually, was saying when you have a plan to lose 100 pounds, if you're working with a weight loss coach,
Yeah.
and you plan to lose 100 pounds, but you're not looking at the small increment that you're going to lose on your goal to the 100 pounds, about 10 days after you start or 20 days after you start, you give up because you're going for the 100, and it takes about a year and a half to lose 100 pounds on average, from what I understand. I've never had to lose 100 pounds, so I can't really speak to that. But that's the idea, is like, oh, that's how long? That's one of the reasons we talk about in 5 years.
That's right.
We want 100 millionaires in the next 5 years. It's tangible. It's easy to identify. We can count it. I'm somewhere around 15 right now. So, hey, we're doing pretty good. And we just started this last year. And so that's really on track. The interesting thing is when we start to look at growing our business and building our business, there's 3 different areas that we want to look at. Number 1 is sales. Now, I teach that a little later, but when I'm teaching somebody about their sales, the reason I focus on sales first is because if you don't have sales, you don't have a business.
That's right. You don't have cash flow. You
might have a product. Actually, this is funny. I had a client who wasn't actually interested in the business that he bought into, but he had a friend who was really excited about doing this nutrition business. And they made a phenomenal protein powder, and they have recipes to do some of the other things that are in the fitness world, like what do you call it? After you work out, the recovery drink.
And yeah.
They have a pre-workout, and all of these are really good, but they made the protein, and neither of them knew how to sell. This is probably about 2 years ago. He still has about 40 bags, maybe 100 bags, sitting in a warehouse that they just never moved.
Yep.
So
this is where I watch programs like Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, and it absolutely kills me because these people have come up with a phenomenal product, phenomenal service, phenomenal concept, and they just can't sell it. So they put it in front of these dragons and sharks, and all they do is they'll say, yeah, I'll buy this for 5% or 10%, whatever. And then they just go add sales and marketing to it, and it takes off.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is that's what they need, is they need somebody who can sell. If you can't sell, then you have a problem because you can't pay a sales team. And if you can, that's good, but the sales team is only going to be as good as you are with how motivating you are. And so it goes back to that vision and mission. But really, I don't even allow my clients to go get outside sales until they've actually built enough that they can pay a real good sales team, because it doesn't make any sense to do sales outside because you are the face of the company. You are the one making the promise of the product. And so it's important for you.
Always say the business owner has to literally develop the first $500,000 in sales.
Yeah, I like 750, but yeah, 750, $500,000. I'm good with $500,000 if you think that you can get a salesperson. But I also watch people who go get a salesperson too early.
Absolutely.
And then they're paying so much for a salesperson, because the other thing that these people do when they get a salesperson is they try to get the best salesperson. So then they got to pay them a lot. And then they start to decline in money, because it doesn't matter who the salesperson is. They have to get used to the product. They have to get connected.
There's a ramp-up period.
The ramp-up period. They have to really understand the company and the vision and the mission. And so a lot of times what we're doing, and it goes back to one of the other conversations we had, is about abdication, is they abdicate their sales instead of bring a salesperson in and actually train them well. And
exactly.
So it's a big problem that a lot of people have. But then we talk about getting leads. So you got sales, and so you're getting better at sales. Then all of a sudden you have to figure out how to get leads. And for me, marketing is a big piece of any business, but without sales, marketing is hard to pay for one, and two, it is the first thing everybody thinks they need, because they think they need to get out to everyone, and really you need to make one sale at a time. And so when I start teaching somebody about marketing, I talk about micro marketing and working around where you are. And like in the beginning, this is the best tool in the world for marketing. You just call it, and that's what network marketing is about, is calling your network of friends and letting them know what cool thing you're doing, and ask if they want to be a part of it, or if they know anybody that would want to be a part of it. And then what's their number? Make sure you get their number.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea is that micro marketing, where you're going to the people that are right in front of you. And so you start to build the network so that you can sell to. And then fulfillment is the third thing that we teach in the real strategy for the business. And in that fulfillment, are you creating an iconic experience? Are you creating an experience that people want to come back to and want to refer you to?
That's exactly
those people. And for me, it goes right back to that idea of the ideal team player that we were talking about. When you show up hungry, humble, smart, and you deliver that way, people are going to love you. They're going to love what you're doing. They're going to want to be a part of it, and they're going to want to bring other people to it. And so this idea of building around that hungry, humble, and smart is very important too. And anybody that I bring into my establishment, they have the same ability to convey my messaging, my vision, my way of thinking about things. And so it's really, when we're talking about building a business and we're talking about the steps to build a business, it's about that clarity and understanding so that you can convey your message. And if you can get one person to jump on board with you, then you get another, then you get another, 4 sales, 5 sales, and you have something that can be built. Then you have to attract the right people, and it's always around the clarity of the message. It's around clarity of your vision and mission. That's where the messaging comes from. And as you start to expand, you bring people in that can get on board with your message, your mission. Confusing my words. But that's how you build a business. And then all the other pieces come in as you grow. You're going to have systems for each one of the different things you're doing. But the systems will identify themselves really. And the way I kind of see it, as soon as you start having a problem, you need a system.
That's right. Exactly.
And so you don't have any money. You don't need a system for money, really. Once you get money, then, I need a system for collecting this. And so you create a system of how your cash flow goes. You get a bank. You get the money to go into the bank. Then you pay people to go out of the bank. And so now you have a nice little system. And then you need a system for tracking. You need a system for tracking people. You need a system for being able to market. You need a system to be able to make sure that your employees are doing what they need to do. But all of those systems arrive out of the problem that the influx of business comes in. And
You've created by the business growing.
Exactly. And one of my friends, actually, Doug, one of the other coaches here, always talks about building the plane while it's flying.
That's right.
There's a few things that you can do before you take off, but once you take off, that's what enables you to really understand what systems you need to improve.
Yeah. So and all, to your point, Terry, too, it all starts with sales and cash flow. That's where it all starts.
Yep.
I always like to say to a business owner when you're first starting out, 65% of all of your time and energy has to be on sales and marketing.
Yep. And
otherwise, you'll never get the plane. To your point, you'll never get the plane off the ground.
Yeah, I love the idea of really, in the beginning, it's micro marketing. And my business partner, Michael, he's a ClickFunnels guy, and he's amazing with what he does with marketing. But over and over in the last 8 months that we've been working together, he's like, these people don't need me, they need you.
That's right.
They're not ready for his level of marketing because they're not clear on their message yet.
Exactly.
And so it's building a business is very simple, and at the same time, the length of time it takes creates a complexity of waiting. But if you have a product, if you have a service, you got to start calling people. You got to start talking to them about how you can help them. What's the problem you solve? What does it show up like in their life so that they can identify, oh yeah, I have that problem? How you solve it? And then you have a business.
I like your analogy, Terry, that if, as a business owner, if you can help people understand how to cross the river, they will follow you across the river.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. Love these times we have together.
There you go.